I want to get into the Mookie Betts contract. And a lot of people are surprised that the Dodgers gave him an extension before this season's end. And I'm going to tell you why the Dodgers didn't wait until season's end, because the New York Mets are going to have a new owner in town. If it's not Cohen, it'll be Harris or the A-Rod, group. There's going to be new ownership with the New York Mets. There'll be other teams that'll be interested in Mookie Betts. And they don't want to lose Mookie Betts when they gave up 3 prospects, one to be the best prospect in professional baseball. They didn't want to lose the opportunity to offer him the contract that he wanted to stay with the Dodgers. And he obliged. They gave him a 12-year, $365 million contract worth about $34 to $35 million a year. It's not quite Mike Trout's contract, but it's the second biggest contract in Major League history.
And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's right behind Mike Trout. Obviously, Mike Trout's the best player in baseball, and if you're arguing that, you really don't have an argument. But Mookie Betts can do everything, too. So, I mean, he's not undeserving of this by any means. He's pretty healthy for the most part. Hasn't had much in terms of injury issues, and is still young, so still plenty of room to grow. He's a little on and off for a player of his caliber. He did down 2016, and then not last year, but after the World Series, he kind of had a slow start. But beyond that, he's a great player and can do everything.
Well, going into this season, the best player in the National League is Christian Yelich. Mm-hmm. And Mookie Betts has proven in the American League that he's an MVP type of caliber player. You talk about Aaron Judge and Mike Trout and Giancarlo Stanton. There's a lot of great players in the American League. Mookie Betts went to a league where there's not as many superstar players in the National League as there is in the American League. Now, that's not saying there aren't great players in the National League. There are a tremendous amount of players. Bryce Harper, you have great pitching prospects. You have great pitchers in the National League, but the hitting comes from the American League. Now, there is going to be a DL added and implemented into the National League this year, which is going to help teams like the Mets, keeping Yoenis Cespedes out and off the field with his wild boar attacking him. But this is a big contract. This is a very good contract for the LA Dodgers. They needed to keep their superstar player. He wanted a big contract before the season started. If the season started without that contract, he would have waited until the offseason, where I'm sure there would have been high bidders that possibly would have given him Mike Trout type of money. He got about $50 million less than Mike Trout, but this is a kid that has the ability to do the things Mike Trout can do on the field. The thing that bothers me about this deal is that now you look at the Boston Red Sox, and I don't care what Boston Red Sox fans think. And I was one of those guys that thought the best Boston Red Sox could have won that deal, because I didn't know if Mookie Betts was going to re-sign with the LA Dodgers. Now that he did, I think the Dodgers robbed the Boston Red Sox. And you look at this deal. This deal is not a crazy deal. This is a fair deal for a guy that's going to be under contract for 12 years. That means he'll be a lifelong Dodger for the rest of his career. And they're getting him really on the cheap. If you really look at Mookie Betts' talent, Mookie Betts could hit you 30 home runs, give you 100 and some RBIs, and give you about 30 to 40 stolen bases. And he's a great defensive player that can play multiple positions on the field, in the infield, in the outfield.
Yeah, he could play second, he could play center, like every outfield position. And the Dodgers are already versatile to begin with all different guys that can move around between their outfield and their top prospect in Gavin Lux, who could play both shortstop and second. They got a ton of versatility. Now you have a great defensive outfielder who could also play second, who's one of the best players in baseball. Yeah, that's going to make that roster even more loaded. So if it's not the Dodgers this year, I mean, when will it ever be?
Well, they're not the most talented team going into the season. I know a lot of people are trying to compare and contrast the New York Yankees to the LA Dodgers. I think on paper the Yankees are the better team because they have the better bullpen, and I think they have the better started pitching. And that's crazy to say, because over the years we could say that the Yankees didn't have the starting pitching that they have this year.
Plus, that was always the Dodgers' strength too.
Adding Garrett Cole to this pitching staff, you have Tanaka, you have a healthy now James Paxton. The only thing that you're missing is a Luis Severino that's going to be out until sometime mid next year, if there is a season next year. This is a talented Yankee team. So the only team that can be compared to the Dodgers is the New York Yankees. So the Dodgers are very highly coveted, especially in the National League. Talented. They have Corey Seager coming back this year, where they're going to be questioning where they're going to put him, because they have a young shortstop and a young second baseman, where they don't really need to put Corey Seager in those positions. There are stories coming out that they might move him to the outfield or third base. So, again, This is a team that's cluttered with talent. They really are cluttered with talent. The question is, when you look at Mookie Betts, is he the leader that they needed to this team? Mookie Betts was not the leader of the Boston Red Sox. He wasn't.
No.
And that's the thing. When you think about Derek Jeter, everybody says, oh, the captain. Derek Jeter was not the leader of the New York Yankees, especially in the last 7-8 years of his career, especially when A-Rod was on the team. It was Alex Rodriguez was the leader of the team, especially with the young players. So, again, you're looking at a player of Mookie Betts' stature who's a talented player, could do everything on the field. The problem that worries me about this particular player is he going to be worth the money they've invested into him for a 12-year contract? Remember, Mookie Betts is about 28 years old, and he probably has about 6 good years left. So, my question here for all the fans out there that are big fans of Mookie Betts or big fans of the Los Angeles Dodgers, is it worth the contract, the money that they invested into Mookie Betts? That's going to be the question. And now you look at Mookie Betts, you look at Mike Trout and Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. These are all $300 million guys, $400 million guys. Now you're looking at Aaron Judge. By the way, Giancarlo Stanton is another $300 million guy. Giancarlo Stanton got that contract from the Miami Marlins. Now you're talking about guys like Aaron Judge that's going to be expecting big money in the next couple of years. So is Gary Sanchez, and so is guys like Gleyber Torres, who's 21, 22 years old, one of the most talented, exciting young superstars in baseball. So you're looking at these contracts. These contracts are getting out of hand. You have Alex Rodriguez coming out that there has to be a salary cap. Why not, Alex? Because you're trying to own a team. You're trying to have a salary cap. Alex Rodriguez, that's robbed the New York Yankees to not one, but two $250 million contracts, which was the biggest contracts in Major League history.
Aren't they still paying him too?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So, and now he's talking about a salary cap because he's trying to buy a new. He's trying to buy the New York Mets. So. I don't understand the back and forth banter or why, and I don't see the players' union absolutely agreeing to this, and I don't think the MLBPA, if they do agree to this, the players' union, there's going to be some stipulations and some specs to it that I don't think the Major League is going to agree to it. So I think it's going to be back and forth banter, and it's never going to happen.
Yeah, especially with hitters now really taking over and being so good, so young right away now. With the bullpen games coming in attack for pitching, there's not as many good starters in the league now, so everyone's paying the hitters, and I think the trend is going to continue. And we're also seeing it with young hitters too, getting paid right away. Not obviously massive contracts, but definitely bigger than rookie contracts.
And then we have the start of the MLB season tonight. The Yankees at 7:08 will start their run for number 28, World Series number 28, in a 60-game season. When you're going back and forth and you look at these teams and from the American League to the National League, when we were going over it the other day and talking about comparing, contrasting who are going to be the competitive teams and who are going to be the fallout to this year's 60-game season, I believe the big fallout to this season is the Boston Red Sox. Now, it will help them because they'll have a high prestige draft pick going into next year. There will be 20 rounds next year into the draft, so it will benefit the Boston Red Sox to take a step back and maybe be a bad team for a year or two, where they can rebuild their farm system that has been not replenished. No. And you see Alex Cora gone, you see the GM gone now. They bring in a young GM that knows how to work free agency, knows how to work the draft, and knows how to go after players that nobody wants.
Good trades, too. Yeah.
So I'm going to be very intrigued and very interested to see a lot of these teams where the Kansas City Royals, that a lot of people believe could be a competitive team this year in a shortened season. I don't know where they see this, but
yeah, I don't see that with their pitching.
Well, a lot of people say they're because it's a 60-game season, that a lot of people believe that the Kansas City Royals will be a competitive team, especially in the American League and in the division that they're in.
I mean, that's going to be tough because you got a very much improved Twins team, a very much improved White Sox team.
That doesn't mean they're going to be good this year.
No, I know that. And
they could go into a slump, a 5, 6, 7, 8 game slump, and they'll fall right off. If the Yankees go into a 5 or 6 game slump, the Yankees are not going to catch up.
Yeah,
you cannot go into a 5 or 6 game slump in this 60-game season. That just doesn't work. It doesn't happen in football. It won't happen in baseball.
In this kind of year, though, you definitely need some level of whether it's pitching versatility or just pitching depth in general, you need some level of it. And the Royals have still been trying to replenish after they traded away a lot of their bullpen pieces. They lost a lot of their starters. They have one young starter that was decent last year in Jake Junis, but that's really it in terms of what they have with pitching. It's really not much. And in this kind of year, that's kind of scary to think about in the American League, especially.
At 10:15, 10:30, the Dodgers will start their season against the San Francisco Giants. That's going to be an interesting game. The San Francisco Giants that is really rebuilding now that their coach is gone. Their manager is gone. They're replenishing their farm system the way they are. They're trading away pieces. You saw they did at the trade deadline last year. I think the Giants are now rebuilding, just like a couple other teams like the Kansas City Royals, like the Marlins. There are teams out there in the National League and the American League trying to rebuild and replenish, just like the Yankees did over the years, and the Yankees did it on the fly. There are teams that really took a lot of time to rebuild. The Tampa Bay Rays, for years, have been replenishing. That's why they have one of the strongest and one of the best farm systems in professional baseball. I look at the Dodgers, they're expected to win this year. If they don't win this year, giving Mookie Betts a $365 million contract with all these players that are going to be expecting big contracts. Bellinger, who's still a young player, in 2 years, he's going to be a free agent. He's going to want big money. He's going to want $300 and some million, especially being the MVP last year. You have Mookie Betts. He's only been a one-time MVP. He got $365 million. So Bellinger's going to be asking for big money. There's a lot of players that are going to be asking for big money on that roster in the near future. So they're expected to win this year. They're clustered with great talent from top to bottom. Their pitching staff is skeptical because Ryu's no longer on the team. Maheda's not on that team anymore. So this is a different team. This is a different pitching staff. They also lost, what's his name again? Their young pitcher. Where did he go? Did he go to the Reds?
Alex Wood, you're talking about?
Yeah, Alex Wood.
No, they got him back. Actually.
Oh, they got him back?
Yeah, he went to the Reds last year. He was in the trade that got.
And when did they re-sign him?
Yeah, they re-signed him because the Reds let him go. I think they might have traded him with for Bauer or vice versa or something like that. He might have been a piece to the Indians, if I remember correctly, and then he went back to the Dodgers. So they actually did get him back. And the other one that's likely to be in that rotation is Urias. We'll see if he adds up to that potential because he was the number one prospect in baseball, I think, 5 years ago, but hasn't lived up to it.